Yep.
Thanks for coming, everybody. We'll start the meeting with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks again for coming out tonight on a great spring day. We'll start with the approval of the agenda. Any additions, deletions, and corrections? Teresa, have a couple here.
Yep.
Anything else besides that?
Do not have more than what you've got.
Dan? Wayne?
Nope. Nope.
Nope. Okay. We're going to remove the attorney report, L1. There was nothing to report there, so we'll remove L. And we're going to add item A to F, resolution accepting donations to the police canine program. So we'll add that, but then I've got, I'll ask the question when we get there. So we'll add A to F, resolution accepting donations to the police canine program. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. On to the consent agenda, number 2. Dwayne, did you want to bring that, the item we just added?
Oh, we just got a few extra zeros in the,
Oh, we do?
yeah, in the PD
Is it 100?
donation.
Is it 100?
Okay.
Is it 10,000 or is it 100?
You can leave those in there.
Police chief would have, okay with that.
Okay, you know what, we can correct it, and then you can approve it with the,
It's $100, right?
it's,
Okay.
It's not 10,000.
what? Oh, that would've been, oh,
It's $100,
extra,
yeah.
okay, yeah, there was extra periods, okay, at $100, all right.
Okay, we have one party that'd be very happy with that, and another one
Yes.
that'd be really surprised. if they're gonna
That they
have to
did
be
that,
bigger,
yes,
so, yeah.
thank you for noticing
All right,
that.
so that's $100, everybody.
Okay, $100, you can approve it.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thanks, Lonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously, Linda. Our most exciting time of the year, which it is for me, I love this stuff. We have visitor to council, Jason Boynton from Smith Schaefer and Associates with our audit update.
All right, well, thank you for having me this beautiful evening. I did pass out a copy of the PowerPoint I'm going through here as well, and you should have gotten financials in your packets. I'm not going to go through the financials tonight, but if anybody did have any specific questions, I'd be happy to entertain those, either now or at the end of the presentation. So you contract with us, with Smith Schaefer, to come in and perform an audit of your financial statements. So we come in, we take a look at your accounting records, we go through things, we ask a lot of questions, we ask for supporting documentation, we test reconciliations, transactions. Based on all that work, we feel comfortable issuing an opinion on the financial statements that they're fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We call it an unmodified opinion. A lot of people call it a clean opinion. And again, that just means that we think that they're fairly stated. I said we're not going to go through the detailed financials tonight. We did sit down and watch through with Nancy with those back on March 28th. There is an MD&A section at the front of the report, which is an okay read as far as a little more plain English discussion of what happened during the year. We are, in addition to issuing the opinion, we're required to do some procedures on legal compliance by the state. We have one comment there, same comment that we had in the past. We got into a CD that we didn't realize that we had another CD at the same bank, so we're a little over collateralized on that CD. But that eventually will clear itself. No major concern there. Management letter, we're required to issue 2 letters. You should have got copies of those as well. We have 2 comments, the same comments we've had in the past. Segregation, that's pretty common amongst smaller cities to be able to segregate your duties. You have an audit done on an annual basis, so that's good, but your oversight throughout the year is important as a council to ask questions and make sure that the answers make sense. And if they don't make sense, you know, then you got to dig into it further. And then preparing the financial statements, we prepare the financials for you as a service. That's pretty common again amongst the cities, but the standards say we can't be part of your control system, so we have to list that as a finding. We don't anticipate, again, either of those are probably going to change in the near future. Then we issue an auditor's responsibility letter. It's a multiple-page letter that goes over if we have any problems or issues or concerns with the audit. We're required to put that in writing. If you had a chance to look through that, you'll see that we did not. Overall, the audit went fine. We didn't have any issues, and again, we feel comfortable issuing the unmodified opinion of the financials. So real brief summary. Any questions there? All right. So instead of going through the financials, we've kind of summarized highlights out of the financials. I've got a lot of information here, I'm gonna go through it really pretty fast, so if you wanna stop and discuss anything or revisit anything, just interrupt me as we go through. So I can try and get through this in about 10 to 15 minutes. So this first chart, I start out with taxable capacity, just to kind of get a feel for what's going on with CAPS. And we're a growing community, so you can see our capacity's coming up. I should caution, in 2018, we got this from a new source through the county. We used to get the capacity from the state. I'm not entirely sure that we got a good number there. I assumed it would be up, but maybe not quite that much, so we're gonna have to follow up on it with the county on that. But anyways, I put that in there. Oops. The wrong button.
F5,
F5?
just the F5 button on the top, full screen it for that.
All right, there we go. Cutting into my time. So, growing city, we would anticipate to see growing revenues, growing expenses as well. So starting out with the property tax levies, our primary revenue source, we're just shy of $3 million in levy there. In actual collections, we got a little bit more than the actual levy as we collected from delinquents from previous years, but you can see just a little bit more than the previous year in 2017 on the levy side. Tax increment revenues, I point this out, it's not real significant at $111,000, but those are for levy dollars that are for specific purposes, and once that purpose is satisfied, that's gonna come back on our general property tax rolls. LGA is our next most significant revenue source. We get $1,076,000 in revenues there. That's up about $56,000 over the previous year. We get a much smaller bump into 2019 at $1,080,000 there. But overall, you can see, when we look at your total revenues here, you got property taxes and LGA. And so you can see in a growing community, you're gonna have increasing costs associated with operating the city. But the LGA really hasn't increased at that same level. And so we gotta make that up locally. So the percentage that we're getting locally through tax dollars is much more greater than what it was probably back in 2009. Every city's dealing with the same issue. They're all, this chart, we do about 30 cities. This chart looks pretty similar in all of them, so. Shifting gears on the expenditure side, so this is by department or category. General government includes all these items here: mayor, council, city clerk, planning and zoning, and so on. Expenses were down. We were at just over $400,000. 2017 was a little high. We did some recruitment consulting study and so on with some dollars from the liquor fund, if you recall, from last year. Public safety expenditures, police, fire, we spent $1,374,000. A little bit of an increase over the last year in employee costs and supply costs within the police area. Public works, we've actually seen a little more focus on public works through repair, seal coating, street activity. And so we spent just shy of $700,000 in 2018, just up a little bit from 17, but looking back historically, we're running a little bit higher costs the last several years. Culture and rec is gonna be your park, rec, swimming pool, and so on. We did see a bump to 13 when we brought on the aquatic center. We spent about $1.1 million, which is about a $100,000 increase. We had some additional employee costs and then swimming pool costs, and we got the new library buildings. I think we're working through our costs there. You can see that in 2018. What our operating costs are going to be in this new library building. We spent a little over $400,000 against some added employee costs and a little bit cleanup from the construction. Looking at all our expenditures in total, our most significant being our public safety expenditures there, you can see, followed up by culture and rec and public works. So those where the dollars are going. I didn't show charts on TIF and economic development, but that's in that last category there. All right, switching gears to reserves. So what we have on hand, so your general fund balance is just shy of $2 million. You can see we've been steadily increasing that fund balance. When you look at it as a percentage of expenditures, we're at about 59% of our annual expenditures. So we were up a little bit. Our expenditures actually overall within the general fund came down just slightly. And so we're just shy of 60% of our annual expenditures that we've got sitting in general fund balance. Library fund, they've got about $161,000 in fund balance. That's down a little bit from last year as our expenses exceeded our revenues a little bit within library. The EDA, they've got just a little over $100,000 in fund balance, and again, they've been experiencing small increases on an annual basis. We got the financial assistance fund, loan fund. There's about $340,000 in fund balance there. Only about $120,000 of that sitting in cash because there's some outstanding loans that we've got still to collect back in that fund. Debt service, this is all the outstanding bonds that the city has. So we did issue the PFA loan in 2018. That was to go pay off the temporary loan, right, Nancy?
Yes.
So it wasn't really actually new debt, it was debt issued that paid off the temporary construction loan. But yeah, right here, this one got paid off and was replaced by this one. But we are making our payments timely, no issue on the debt side with our outstanding obligations. Talked in the past about the GASB required back in 2014 that we have to start to record our pro rata share of the para underfunding on our financial statements, and so we do that. They changed assumptions in 16 and changed it back in 17, that's why there's such a wild swing. But I added this bullet this year, basically looks at their funding percentages, and you can see the general employee one is at about 80%, and the police and fire, which is this other one's almost at 90%. I think if you look nationally, even though they're underfunded, that's actually not that bad of a funding percentage for, again, it's all based on their actuarial assumptions and how they calculate what that liability is, but I just thought I'd point that out. On the flip side, pension asset, we've got because of our relationship with Cash and Fire Relief, we record that too on our financials. They have excess cash on hand over and above their liability by about $68,000, which is up from 26 the year before. Capital projects, our reserve fund. So we've had quite a bit of activity in here. We had built up fund balances through 2012. I used some money in 13 for the aquatic center project. I used some money in 14, 15, 16 for constructing the library building. 17 was for a stormwater project, and then 18 we did have additional dollars going in, but we did purchase that house for 102 15th Street, I think, for a future
Yeah.
street activity, right?
Street, right.
Finish up with the utility funds. Let's start taking a look at water fund. These are all going to be the same. You got your revenues in the blue, so that's what we collect from the users of the system. Your expenses here, this lighter color is depreciation, which is a non-cash charge for the capital assets. This is actually operating costs. And then your black there is your surplus. So you can see 2016 we started ramping up our revenues. Expenses haven't gone up as much, so we're generating a little bit more surplus within the water fund on an annual basis. From a balance sheet perspective, this is your cash balance, which we saw was coming up with those surpluses. We did spend some capital in 2018 within water, so we actually used some cash reserves there. And then we also did some bonding in 2017, and now we're starting to pay back the debt service within water. So rates look pretty good in water. Wastewater, your sewer fund. Again, a lot of activity going on there with Manorville coming on, and so we got some connection fees in the year before. Now we got operating revenues in there as well, and that's all included within here. So an increase in revenue, and we are generating a surplus. Not a lot of capital related outside of what was funded through the debt obligations. So our cash balances did increase a fair amount within sewer, and then we're starting to make payments on the outstanding debt obligations within wastewater fund. Electric, last 3 years have been generating surpluses there. After we had some deficits that locked in some purchase power costs back in 13 through 15, that came off in 16. And so we've been able to then, because of those deficits, we had brought down our cash balance down to about $485,000, but now we built that up, we got about $2.2 million set aside in electric for future capital needs. Stormwater, revenues here in the purple, we get a little bit over $400,000 in revenues. The costs are relatively small, so we do generate a surplus, and again, this is generally going to be used for capital-related needs. So we got about $1 million. We got some unspent capital money from 2017 of about $500,000 that went in there, and then the excess that we generated. But I think we talked to you. Do you have a significant storm project coming up?
Yep, finally this year.
Liquor fund continues to operate strong performance there, so revenues are up, expenses are actually down a little bit, so our surplus is running a little bit higher in 2018 than the year before, and they continue to put away cash reserves. So they got about $590,000 in cash reserves at the end of 2018. And then the cemetery, our costs exceed what we get for fees out there. It's been happening for the last 10 years. So I think that was turned over to the city quite some time ago with some dollars, and then those dollars are continuing to work themselves down. So we got about $150,000 on hand at the end of 2018. So a quick summary: our reserves increased in the general fund by $200,000. We're at about 59% of our expenditures, which is in a good range for fund balance within the general fund. Making our payments timely on the debt. We did issue the loan, but it was really just to pay off the temporary utility revenue, no water and wastewater rates are generating enough, revenue to cover our operating costs and building cash reserves, although we did use some reserves in water this year for capital. Electric has done much better the last 3 years, building our cash balances back up within the electric, and liquor fund continues to show consistent operating results and with an increase in cash reserves, so. Covered a lot of ground there. Any questions for me or anything anybody wants to revisit?
Good. Probably your standard questions, but yeah, no, very good. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me this evening.
Yeah.
I thank Nancy and her team for the work that they do. It's not a lot of work to pull an audit together and get ready for us and to deal with all our questions and disruptions, and we appreciate it, the staff, like working with Nancy, so it's a good relationship.
Perfect. Thank you. And thanks, Nancy. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks to Jason and his team too, they're really great to work with and have been for the last 20 years. So we appreciate everything they're doing. They're helping guidance with things as questions arise throughout the year as well, so thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Have a safe trip back.
All right, thank you. Back to copy of the PowerPoint. That'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public forum. We got one card from Aaron and Sonia Thompson.
Can we speak at the time of the
Yeah,
planning
that's
commission?
fine. Yep,
Thank you.
that's fine. Committee report. Planning Commission, Thompson final plat resolution. Okay.
The planning commission did recommend the, final plat for approval.
Okay, is there any comments from the planning commission members?
Well, there, Mr. Thompson, you'll be bringing it up, I'm sure, he's got some objections to some of the comments that were part of the engineer's report, of which were not discussed at length at the planning commission. At that time, felt it wasn't appropriate to bring up his concerns. It was more of council action rather than planning and zoning action. So that's why the plat was approved, as you see it. And I'll let Mr. Thompson express his concerns based off the engineer's report, so everybody can hear it firsthand.
Okay. Why don't we start with that then?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, we are Aaron and Sonia Thompson, 504 16th Street Northeast, Casson, Minnesota. Basically, I had 4 items that I wanted to discuss that were brought up. I think I'll start with the easiest one first. Number 10 was requiring a 20-foot wide drive, but there was notes by the police chief to make that 16 feet. I'm sorry, fire chief, sorry about that. To make that 16 feet. I have some evidence to back up if somebody would like to discuss that, but I think we can move on to that one. And so number 11, it was requested to bore underneath the road. As we started out wanting to build affordable housing for seniors, young married and single adults, and single moms, this project, like many others, continues to increase in cost beyond affordability. It may end up like many others in Casson, where it just becomes more expensive. So we're looking for funding ways to offset the rising cost from different sources. The recommendations from the engineer here, based on talking with my contractors, is adding somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000 worth of cost, which is almost adding 20% to the project. So one of the questions that I have is, are these have-tos? Are these in the ordinance, or are they and required, or are they, this would be nice to have? So we're re-looking at the development and trying to figure out, is this really the right way to go, or did the previous person who kind of already platted the land already realize that it was going to be cost prohibitive, so just build single-family homes? So one of the first, is it a have to or is it nice to, is boring under the road. This is gonna add a minimum of about $6,000 to the cost of the project. It was given to me that, no, the city wouldn't like any roads to be cut up. And I guess I would probably agree with that. But we're already digging a minimum of 15 feet into the road on one side. To get to the sewer, we're digging 10 feet in from the other side to get to the water, which is digging up 25 feet of about a 45-foot wide road. So it leaves maybe one lane of traffic to get across. So, setting up a boring machine has to set inside the baseball field in order for it to work. So I'd hate to disrupt the baseball season or have to wait. And then it was also brought to my attention that there was a lot of problems with the road that was cut open for the school maintenance building. And I actually went out there and looked at it. It's a pretty nice crown. Looked like a pretty nice job. And when I drove over it a few times, it was like driving across all the other joints that are on 16th Street. So I do understand the concern that, you know, it probably needs to be maintained until it can be blacktopped, because it is a very busy road. And I'll take personal responsibility for that, since I live right there. I can see how it works every day and make sure that we take care of it. So, we do not want to do this, and so we're just looking to say, how do we just cut the road up, get it done as quick as possible, and then get it re-blacktopped so that the chip sealing can be done as planned. Moving on to number 12. This one is it is a code that says that the water lines are supposed to be 10 foot apart. But if you have a hardship, you can go to a single trench, and I don't know the technical term for the proper pipe, but it's more durable pipe. It's got to be tested, and I guess I'd just like this to be pushed through to the health department and let them make the decision. We are dealing with an existing structure, as in our house, so this would require us to be 10 feet away from there. If the other line is 10 feet away, we lose a 50-year-old tree. I prefer not to lose a 50-year-old tree, because I'm not going to be able to get that back in my lifetime. And so I would just like to leave it on the plans and work through the health department. And if they come back and say no, then I guess that's what we'll have to do at that point. So the last one is number 15, abandoning and adding new service. This is adding about a minimum of $10,000 to the project. It was told to me that they want to clean up an old service, which I don't know how old the service is, but the road going in front of there, I don't know if it's was it put in 2000, or was it before that? Because it was a gravel road all the way when I was in high school. So I don't know if the service is that old. I did buy the lot with the service already there, so it was a part of the cost. Otherwise, I would have negotiated it down. The other thing that I look at is we've got to dig up the road 15 feet deep on one side, 10 feet deep on the other, which is going to take up the road. They're not dug in the same trench. They're about 40 feet apart from where those two would be. So it was told to me that, well, we want to clean it up in case there's ever a problem. And I kind of thought about it, and I'm like, well, if there's ever a problem, let's abandon it where it's coming from and bring it off of our new service at that time. I don't believe in spending money for something that, if the townhomes don't sell, we may never even put a house there. So I'm spending money, and so this is adding almost $4,000 per lot, which is about probably 14%. So these lots are getting up to be probably $40,000. You can go down the street and go into Bigelow's latest subdivision and probably get a lot for $50,000. That's probably 2.5 times the size of what we're putting here. So I'm asking that those 4 things be removed, because I will not do them, and open to questions or thoughts. And I guess we do have there is an ordinance 53.0612E that says as long as a sewer line has been tested, you can tap into it. An existing sewer line, so if I'm reading that correctly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
We'll talk about, we need you, we'll grab you back up.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. So you got the plans, the comments there in front of you. Get the right page here. So the first one, the concern is brought up, the width of the driveway. All I know is what came from planning and zoning and Brandon's report, and then we did get a letter from the fire chief saying 16 feet road. From the fire department standpoint, we're okay with 16-foot road and a hydrant location on Thompson, as long as there is something in agreement that says no parking on the road, and they will be towed if they do. Also, on the stone right, okay, we'll get to that later. So that was from the fire chief's recommendation for council.
Yeah, and this is a private drive, so, rather than public street, so.
Okay. Any comments?
No, I defer to the fire chief, so I'm
Yeah,
fine
it's
with
just,
whatever
I
the fire
think
chief
that
likes.
the fire department should be consulted.
Okay, so
We're fine.
we're
They
good
were
with the
consulted.
16-foot road? We can
Yeah.
number one off our list?
Yep.
We're making progress.
Can I, about the parking on private property,
Yep.
you can't tow,
No.
it's private.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. We're just addressing the width of the driveway.
Yeah.
I don't have, we can't put there that we're gonna tow on private property.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but good point.
Yeah.
It will say fire lane, no parking.
Yeah, that's just
So,
you
so
to
that, right,
determine.
so that
Yep.
will be there, so, you know.
Yeah, okay. Now, the second concern was the boring under the road, is that a must or a want?
And
I mean, I get where the recommendation's coming from, it's kind of, when the school was doing that too, we kind of pushed back on that for a while. Because I don't know what you guys, planning and zoning, thought about that, any comments from them?
go ahead.
There wasn't discussed there. Okay.
The only thing I would say is the boring machine wouldn't have to set up in the baseball field. It could go the other way. Just bear with me,
No, no,
bear
yeah.
with me.
Oh, okay.
It could set the other way to do the bore. But I would have to agree, as close as the water main is to the back of the curb line, you're gonna have an awful chunk of the street open just to be able to get down there to tap onto it. Plus, you're gonna be how far into the street with the sewer? You've almost tore up the whole street right there and that. I don't think the advantage of boring would offset anything. I just don't see it. That's my view.
Yeah, yeah, essentially half of it's tore up, and I agree with Mr. Thompson on the aftermath of the school, water main construction. It's perfectly fine, I don't have any problem with it, I drive on it every day, so.
I see it's been patched again this year,
So,
If I could, can I interject a little
Yep,
bit?
absolutely.
Just so council understands where these recommendations come from. So we have a staff review that includes basically all the department heads, and we review these plans and we make all these considerations and discussions. Going back to the school discussion is, we just had a lot of difficulty there with the driving lanes. We're gonna have to full detour, we're gonna have to close that road down. City staff's spent a fair amount of their time maintaining that gravel, before it was actually paved in, and now it is scheduled to be patched. I think it has been patched by city staff, so we are incurring cost by allowing, that road to be open cut, but, Lonnie's point, you are exactly right. We're gonna end up dumping in both sides of the road in the excavations just due to the way the water and sewer lay in there. And I see the hardship for the directional drilling of that short portion, because we first talked about drilling the whole thing and then everything was gonna be good, but now we're incurring a lot of pavement restoration that we're just gonna have to. There's gonna be no way around that. So it is one of those things that we debated and kicked around at staff level. But at the end of the day, just understand from a council perspective, our staff will likely have to be on the developer to maintain it. It didn't happen in the school. The city staff just spent their time maintaining that gravel before it was actually paved. And now we're gonna be patching that in there. Again, it's not ideal, and we're gonna have a road closure on 16th Street if we don't do that. Just understand there's more to this discussion. It's a pretty broad discussion on things that we all consider and go into it. But with that said, there definitely is a little bit of a hardship here on the way everything lays out. It's just not quite ideal, obviously, so.
if the whole thing was bored, then that'd be a different story.
Yeah, I think it'd be a
Right.
slam dunk. And that was, we started with the school, that discussion, bored in, too shallow, couldn't do it, just didn't work out, so we open cut it. Now we're
dealing with the aftermath with the staff, ultimately maintaining that section and city incurring some costs at the end of the day.
Sure. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So Lonnie, with your experience, are they able to dig up one side of the road, put the sewer in, cover it back up, and then go dig up the water on the other side?
Problem is, you gotta go in the same trench. You'd
Oh,
have
yeah.
to literally do the water
Yeah.
and get that, but the
Do
sewer
the
is
water
right in the
first.
middle of 16th, isn't it?
No, it's on the, south side.
It is on the south side, so you'd have to hit the water
Get the water first,
and
and
get
then
that
the
in
road
and get it
back open up.
backfilled to at least get another lane open.
Okay.
Okay. So is there a consensus on that? Dan, anything?
No, I think it makes most sense to just do it all at once, Darrell.
Okay. Mel, anything? Okay. So like number 2, we can agree on that. Number 3, water lines 10 feet apart. It's outside of my understanding of what's going on here. Is that requirement, and can it be up to the health department to do that? Is it a health code that?
Correct,
says that
it is a
because-
code from the health department.
Okay.
And there is some exemptions, but I believe this does not qualify for one of those exemptions.
Okay. So could we leave it up to the health department, and the health department says no exemption, then it's just done?
And if the health department missed something, I don't think that's the right way to approach getting something permitted by,
Okay.
missing a permit review. I could follow up with the health department and ask them if it falls under the exemptions, and then follow back up, but again, I don't think it does.
Okay. What number was that again?
Number 12.
Number 12. Keep skipping around here.
Three of our contractors wanted to do a single trench also, because they thought that would be more cost effective.
Okay. Again, this is outside of my knowledge of the health department's code and why, and so this isn't our ordinance.
Correct.
The template, this is
Yep, the Department of Health regulates water systems in the state of Minnesota, so it's a regulation from the state, Department of Health.
Okay.
So if we get affirmation on that, we can just, it's not a part of this condition, right?
Right.
You could put a condition there for the engineer to follow the health department and see if it's permittable or not, and I can relay the message on to Thompson.
To see if we can get the exception for it.
Yep, I'm pretty sure we can't, but I'm more than happy to follow up with
We
him.
can press for it or ask for it, though.
Yep.
Okay.
Could I follow up with that, since I'm the developer asking for it?
Sure. Well,
I feel it's a conflict of interest that the
Yeah.
engineer who's pushed it, saying this is what needs to be done, asking for an exception. I don't feel I'm gonna get the fairest shake. I'd rather have my engineer call them and contact them.
I don't necessarily agree with the logic on that, because you're also an interested party. So for you to be asking for the exemption, it would financially benefit you if you get it. So I'm not saying, Aaron, that, I'm just pointing out that that argument runs both ways as far as a conflict of interest. And since it is a health issue, I would be very concerned about this one, because the health folks don't make ordinances just willy-nilly for fun and giggles.
No, but that's where I'm asking that it be drawn the way we originally did it, push it through to the health department. When I ask for my permit, if they come back and say, no, you need to put them 10 feet apart, then I can have a discussion at that time to talk about it. Because if they say no, I don't know if I'm going through with this, because I don't want to lose the tree in the back.
Right.
So at that point, then I would say, oh, okay, well, I'll back out of it.
What would you be doing in preparation for this? I would just hate to see you expend a ton more money on something and then have the health department come back and say no. And then you're out additional funds that you've spent on prep or planning work or more tree removal, more digging, more,
I would say at this point, it's just double checking with, having my engineer double check with the health department and get their take on it by submitting the drawings to them and saying, this is what we're looking to do, are you okay with it?
I understand what you're saying. I guess, how do I say this? I don't look at it as this is Brandon's, our engineer's opinion. He thinks it should be 10 foot apart, and it's his rule that this is actual policy that's in place. So for us to push through an application that we know goes against what the rule is, that puts us in a compromising place with the Department of Health, that we're gonna start sending stuff through that we know isn't right, but we just hope they approve it at the time or miss it.
I'm not asking them to miss it, I'm willing to have the conversation. I'm just saying if you leave the drawings the way they were shown with a single trench, and then say this is what we're doing, they have the right, I'm not asking them to miss anything, I feel it's a hardship. I've got a building and I got a tree. I'm gonna lose one of them, I'm gonna, you know.
Can I ask Brandon one question?
Sure.
Have you ever been involved in a project where it hasn't been a 10-foot separation?
Oh, yeah, yep, for rock excavation or very narrow right where we can't secure more right away, there is an exemption to run these pipes together as being proposed.
Because of certain
Certain criteria, and I'm not 100% positive this isn't an exemption or that they may, allow this. So that's where I think I'd ask again, the condition would be, I can follow up, and whether that's the developer's engineer submitting it, that's fine. As long as we get the health department to acknowledge the fact that this is allowed, that they just don't miss it. I mean, that's what I'm comfortable with. So. as
We
long
just
as
submit the
council
drawings
says-
with the single trench and say,
Yeah, we'll just follow up with the health department and ask them and
here's our
figure it out,
question,
and
we wanna do this in a single
either-
trench.
Either goes or doesn't go,
Yeah.
depending on what we find. That's, I mean, I'm comfortable with that, and we can work through that, it's not a problem.
But someone's going to specifically ask the
Yep.
health department, here's the situation, here are the
Yep.
facts, what's the opinion letter?
Yep, and if Aaron wants to send correspondence to the health department, we can copy on it, that's fine, or we'll
Yeah.
figure it out, I think we can work through it.
Yeah, I think it's most appropriate that a government entity communicate with a government entity when we're talking about regulations, so. With Brandon being our representative of a government entity, I think that's the most appropriate route to take.
We can submit the plans with the single, and just let them know, hey, this is what we'd like to do, and here's why.
Yep, not a problem.
And hopefully the person looking at it likes 50-year-old trees. So, I mean, does that sound, with everybody? That we put that, you know, okay with the condition that they approve it, and we'll try our best to get them
Yep.
to approve it. Okay. Number 4, abandoning and adding new service.
Which is actually not
Number
number 15.
Number 15.
No, number
Okay.
15 is different.
I'm sorry.
Number 15 is,
Oh, that's the easement.
the easement vacation. So actually, that's a reference to the note that's on the plans.
Okay, so it's not a number, it's written
not
on
a
the.
number.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on the engineer's report.
Um,
So again, I can read the documents and listen to the comments in English, you know, what does this exactly mean and why are we?
As far as we know, it's a perfectly good service, as far as we know. It's not been in use.
It has been in use, I did ask Mr. Charlie Bradford on how old it was, it's older than he's been at the city, so he's thinking it's 30 years old.
Oh, okay.
So I just, again, we're discussing about what are the advantages, disadvantages, the other options, so, my concern here would be, we build new structure, and we have a service, a water service and a sewer service that doesn't follow all the other services in a very short service. We spent a lot of money on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th projects straightening out long water services, because a lot of homeowners had private services running down streets, across neighbor property. Melissa knows firsthand. We spent a lot of money straightening this stuff out. And then if that service is 30 years old, and a new home buyer buys this house and finds out there's a water service that goes all the way across 16th Street, and they have to either run a new service across 16th Street, detour, close down the road, re-pack in the road, obviously very costly, or come back and dig up the new road that's been placed on this house. It's just something that I just don't think we can recommend, and I think we need to straighten it out. That's why we made the recommendation we did. So we're looking out for, you know, future issues and problems there.
The service is planned to go here, there's an existing service right here. And so this is the one that's in question.
Okay, next to that driveway on the west.
So the new service that we just talked about, where they're cutting into the road, will be somewhere right in here, and the existing service sits right in here.
So is this, go ahead.
Now, will they be able to abandon this at the right-of-way, or do they have to go all the way to the main?
So our past projects, we were like Casey's and Mayo Clinic, other redevelopment, we had them abandon the water service at the main and sleeve the main, and that's what we're proposing to do here in this situation.
so we're gonna have to cut open 16th.
To get the sleeve on if we abandon this main at this point and not use this, abandon the service and not use the service, correct?
So this is the same street we're tearing up to put
The new
The new
sewer
service
line.
in.
Correct.
Just,
You can't put the new
just
service in the
about
same trench as the
40
old
feet
service?
to the west.
No,
And
because
again, my lack of knowledge, that's why I'm asking, it might be a silly question.
We'd be
but-
abandoning the service that's 116th Street
Yep.
and moving it over to, basically the sewer and water that's in the private street. So we'd be straightening up, so it's a short little service running into the house conventionally that all the other houses are configured that way. So if that ever service was to go bad, where do we run new service? Either across 16th Street, close down 16th Street, it's gonna be a huge amount of cost for whoever buys that end unit, or we straighten it up and then, it's solved at that time. Or they abandon it on 16th Street, then the homeowner's gonna be responsible for digging at 16th Street. And you know where this homeowner's gonna be, to the next future council when this happens.
Right.
That's what we're looking out for. Because again, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we all made the decision that we were gonna straighten up services that were run down side streets that go underneath neighboring properties, et cetera, so.
But is there any way that, rather than digging 16th in another location to abandon these, you understand what I'm getting? Because we're gonna have to go to the west to abandon this service.
We could abandon it at the curb stop that's, outside the roadway to the
Right.
south side, but then now we have a corp on the main and then the service on 16th Street that's still live.
I get that.
Which isn't ideal.
I get that, but at least we wouldn't have to tear open 16th again right now. If and when it will happen sometime, we'll have to re-blacktop 16th. Couldn't it be capped then by the city?
Definitely, we could do it at a later time, but again, then we're incurring costs from the city when the direction I got from the council
I
to
get
develop,
that.
pay for development.
I get that, but to open it up twice, just seems, if we can abandon it at the curb stop for now, until something happens down the road, at least it's not going to a house. A homeowner doesn't have to worry about it, but yes, the city is gonna have to incur the cost someday
Mhm.
to cap it, but it would cause less havoc on 16th right now.
So it definitely could be, again, you're deferring
I
work
know.
to the city on the city's dime, but.
I get that, but it's less headache too.
Yep. Just want you to understand what the decision and
Yeah.
what the advantage, disadvantages are each way, so.
What's the potential downfall to capping it the way you guys are talking about, and what could go wrong?
Downfall, if we move forward what's proposed,
Mhm.
I don't know if there would be one.
Okay.
We're setting it up in the most conventional way, the most straightforward way, less cost for the city in the long term, less cost for the homeowner, in the long term, but obviously more cost for the developer in the short term.
But if you're doing it the way Lonnie just asked about, is there any potential?
Disadvantage to that?
Yeah.
That service leaks, and then the city's gonna be on the hook, 'cause it's not really a service that the homeowner there is using.
Right.
They're using their conventional service off the private street, so.
I can clarify a few things there. Sure. Number one, all the water and utilities will be a part of the association. So one homeowner is not gonna bore the cost of this, if there's ever a future problem. It would actually be the association that owns all of the utilities and the drive, for one thing. So, the second is I can pull a permit tomorrow and dig a home and hook onto that service. Based on the ordinance that's here, it says that I can tap into an existing service as long as it is tested and okay. I'm all for, if something happens down the road and there's a problem, let's bring the new service in, off of the private drive and then get it abandoned, however we need to at that time. But I just don't see why wreck something that is perfectly fine right now. I got the same water service going to my house. I don't seem to have any issues, from that standpoint, so, we've gotta verify that it's good when we, use it from that standpoint. Right now, I've got about a $10,000 bill, and that doesn't include the blacktopping and all of the other things that go along with it. It's just, this project's just the homes aren't gonna be affordable when we're all said and done, and that's not what our mission is. Our mission is affordable housing.
Part of the comprehensive plan as
Right,
well.
yeah, so that's where, I'm just trying to keep the cost down, and that's what I've asked my engineer to do, and it's just, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's kinda where I'm at.
You were asking something?
Brandon answered.
So where are we at on this, council-wise?
What's the cost gonna be on the city down the road if we cap it? You know, I mean, obviously, you won't know an exact, but I mean,
Yeah, it's hypothetical, yeah, I mean, we might replace that main before it leaks too, and we dig by it, so, might be never. Well, probably about 5,000 to 10,000 by the time you're done. I mean, to Aaron's point though too, is that, you know, it all costs money and adds to the cost, so. Again, I'm just looking out for that property owner that lives on the end, and like they bought a new house with new sewer and water, and their water service is 30 years old, and it runs across the pretty busy street, so it's just what we're discussing.
To clarify, it wouldn't be the homeowner, it would be the association of 14 different lots that end up having to cover that cost in the future, if there's ever a cost.
That doesn't serve anybody that's to the west?
No, it only serve that one resident, so I don't know how enforceable a private, arrangement with that would be on a service, because if that service breaks, you're gonna shut down the one house, so I don't know what the association does, and see if that would be the case or not.
Because the association is in charge of the drive and all the utilities that would be there, in that aspect.
But
So.
the main would be out in the public right away, so it's not within the association, so I don't know how you have to, if it's clarified there, potentially, I don't know, but it's not quite that straightforward, potentially that.
No, and I'm saying that if it breaks in the future, we fix it just like you're talking about right now, and.
At the association's expense. Is there a way for us to have that binding in our agreement?
Well, that'd be with any service, right? It's a private service at the end of the day.
Right.
But the problem is, those services have come back to the city, and we've done petition waivers, and there's been hardships, and we spent money to straighten them out. So, what do we do with that, you know, I mean, do we either do it now, or it's gonna be a potential hardship for the city in the future? It's again what we're looking out for, so.
Okay.
And if you're building affordable housing, I mean, asking 14 affordable housing residents to suddenly cough up all that extra money that they're not planning for is a consideration as
I'm
well.
asking for them to cough it up right now, before they even buy the lot, because the cost is incurred on all of the different lots already. So they're gonna, I mean, the cost becomes, you know, the same burden, whether it's now or in the future. It's just now, we're driving up the cost to, you know, things that are gonna be costing over $300,000 for a house. That's not affordable anymore. I guess one question I would ask is, what if we were to put a new water service on, tap into the existing sewer that's already there, and then figure out how in the future to cap and put a sleeve on in the future?
I think what Lonnie was proposing would be a better situation
Okay.
for the developer.
but
That's the
you're
next one.
saying, you're saying right now it's $10,000?
Oh, at least.
Off of 16 lots, it's $600.
You gotta add in the real estate fees that go on top of that, all of that, because it's the end product at the end where the cost is all
Sure.
incurred.
But
And it's only off of 12 lots right now, because that's what the development is being done.
But if you go down the road, it goes out, your cost is gonna be more, ultimately, and then you're incurring even more of a cost.
But that cost is incurred by the 14 people in the association that are there, not one developer putting it all forward. And the ordinance already says I can hook onto it.
But if you
If it's
have,
tested.
if you only sell 2 townhomes in 5 years,
Then I'd never even use this water service. So I spent $10,000 and charged those people for something that never gets used.
That may not go wrong.
That may not go wrong.
but if you're putting in 2, how they getting?
There,
You
there's
gotta hook
a
'em
brand
up.
new, there's a brand new service going down the road, and everybody else is tapping off of that except for our existing home and the one lot that's in the front. The last building to be built would be the one in the front. So if I only have 2 townhomes that get built, I'm not even gonna use this service ever at that point.
Okay, let me ask you one question. Someday down the road, you were kinda talking that your house would go and there'd be 2 additional lots there, are you gonna put those future two services?
There
off?
is a service that will be added for our house at this time.
Okay.
So that when we do build something there, then our house can tap on, but then the house that goes in front of ours would use the existing service,
Right.
so.
Okay. I guess I give my simple-minded opinion. I understand what we've charged you to do, and it makes sense. But in this situation, to serve one lot, it's probably not going to be the last lot built. I don't know if we enforce that right now. And to tear the street up twice. That's probably a bigger concern than the lot.
Of the four conditions, that's the one that I struggle with the most, because we have, to my knowledge, we haven't tested this existing service, right?
I don't believe so.
Yeah. So we're making a decision on something that's been untested. If it was tested and it failed, the decision is easy. You just hook it up to the new service.
How do you test it?
You have to dig down, open it up.
Oh, you actually physically have to.
I mean, there's no way of testing the water line unless you're gonna hook up to it.
Yeah, I don't know what the building safety division's doing for testing sewer and water service, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if there is a real test to it, either hook on and go, and that's it.
It works or it doesn't.
Yeah, water either leaks or it doesn't, and
Okay.
sewer drains, and we didn't talk about I&I and that level using old sewer service, but, we'll kinda go, if it drains, and if it doesn't leak, it doesn't leak, so.
Scientific.
We're being asked to make a decision on an unknown.
Right.
Which makes it really difficult, and I wish my crystal ball was a lot clearer, but it isn't, to predict the future, so this is the one I really struggle with the most. To me, it makes sense not to tear up the street and to hook up to the existing, and hope that everything is working fine, because we've got no indication that it don't. But I understand the direction that the city has taken over the last few years to clean up all of this spider web of services that we have in this community. So it makes sense to stay consistent with that also. So,
I can see what you're saying, and the consistency part of it, I totally understand. Makes it a little easier for me to not be consistent with this one, because there's not gonna be any development on the other side of the street.
right.
We're not dealing with four corners where it's all going everywhere, it's to one lot, and only to one lot, it's not gonna be to other lots, because there's no other lots across the street. Or to the west, there's already service from somewhere else, so it's isolated. That's where I can get over that, 'cause I totally understand when I was over watching them dig on Third, Fourth, and Fifth a couple times, and they didn't know where stuff was at, and water was shooting out of the ground, and so it was kind of entertaining.
Can I just interject something?
And that can happen right back here. I mean, 20 years from now, somebody could have a water problem, and they could be looking for that curb stop forever in front of those houses, and it's on the south side of 16th. I mean, how many times have we seen that? Right out by the church and the dump road. Nobody knew where the water main was. And it can be a real issue. I still think to abandon it at the curb stop. I mean, it will cut down his cost, yes. It will lead to something that the city will have to incur down the road, but it will ease his costs. It will force him to create a new service off his private line, but at least 16th would have to be cut open twice. It isn't leaking now, and if they abandon it at the curb stop where it is right now, it isn't any further. Nobody will have to dig over there. Nobody will have to disturb anything. It's a done deal. The only thing is he'll have to add a service on his private line. But nobody will be looking anywhere else for that water and sewer line. It's in the same group with the new development. That's my view.
Well, and I was gonna say, if it's a matter of either the city paying for it, you know, if it's a matter of the city paying for it later, the city could pay for it now too, so, you know, it's important to close it up.
Sure.
Here.
Oh.
I wanted to clarify Lonnie's comment. So I put the private services in, which is about $2,500. And would we just leave the water the way it is until the time of building that unit and then cap it off at that time? Because right now it's
You
capped.
don't have to do anything with it. If we're gonna leave it at the curb line, you don't have.
No, well, it's at, there's a shut off in my
Yes,
yard.
but I mean, you don't have to do anything with it right now, is what
Right,
I'm saying.
right.
Cause the curb stop is at the right of way.
Is that right? Okay, all right.
Well, it depends on when he builds his
Right,
structure.
right, I get that.
No, I was just, yeah, you're saying the shut off is at the right of way, where it's at, I was just trying to wonder, is that at the right of way or is it in the yard? But-
Should be.
But
at the
ultimately, it
right
would
of
be
way.
capped off at that time.
Should be at the right of way.
Right, okay. Just a long ways into that.
Anything else on that? So we have consensus, or do we need anything else? I mean, you've had yours say, leave it where it's at right now.
I'm just, my suggestion is to leave the sewer and water where it's at, the way it is, don't touch it. He'd have to add a sewer and water off his private line on his private drive to feed that last house.
And at the time of construction, we would tie into the new water and sewer service and then abandon at the curb stop, not the
Right.
disturb 16th Street.
Yes.
Mhm.
3 blocks away.
That's just my suggestion.
Okay. Anybody else have something to add or discuss on that?
I kinda like it, then you're not tearing up the street again.
Wait.
Because you're protecting the street, but you're also protecting the potential future homeowner.
Yes.
And then there's no cost incurred unless and until that.
No, there's more
happens.
cost, it's another service that I'm adding, which is $2,500 to $3,000.
A lot less than 10, 11 grand.
Yes, it is, And
And then it's new instead of.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds like we've come to a happy medium.
Okay. Can you repeat that so that I can write down exactly what?
Okay. So is there a number of that lot?
Lot 1, block 1, block 1, lot 1.
The sewer and water service for lot 1, block 1. The existing sewer and water service will be left abandoned at the curb stop at the right of way. But a new sewer and water service will have to be added from the line on the private drive, from the main on the private drive. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then when structure is constructed, it'd be tied to those new sewer and water services?
Correct.
Okay.
To tie to the new.
And then abandon at the curb stop?
Yes.
Okay.
And what'd you say about the curb stop?
Just put curb stop removed, curb stop box removed.
Okay.
And we won't know it's there anymore.
Okay. All right. Anything else from planning and zoning, council members, administrator?
Not about that,
Okay, so we have a resolution in front of us to approve the final plat for the Thompson addition with 4 changes. First change is to allow a 16-foot driveway rather than a 20-foot. The second one was that the road will be opened up and aren't gonna require boring underground. Third is we're gonna present the plans with a single trench to see if the Department of Health will okay exception to not require the 10-foot
Separation.
separation that they require. And the fourth is Lot 1, Block 1, the sewer and water service left abandoned at the right-of-way. New service added from the main on the private drive. When new construction is done, we'll tie into the new service and the curb stop will be removed.
If I could just add one clarification, so when we open cut 16th Street, we're gonna have a detour similar to what we required from the school? Okay.
Yes.
I appreciate that was added in there.
Okay.
Clarified, thank you.
Okay, is that what we came to consensus on those four changes? Okay, all right. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution with those changes.
I'll make that motion.
Lonnie, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dwayne. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, good discussion. Next item on the agenda is Stone Ridge Second Edition Final Plat Resolution. So we have this resolution. Any update from planning and zoning on this? Any issues that, Teresa, you had something you wanted to?
No, it was recommended for approval
Okay.
as submitted.
Okay.
Yeah, it, didn't have hardly any discussion, because everything pretty much has been resolved with the property owner. The main thing was the stormwater retention, and I understand there's a letter of agreement between the two property owners with that, so.
And that satisfies the alternative B. They are still asking to pursue A, which is the regional.
So there's two choices and one will get done.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, all right. Okay. Any questions or other comments? Brandon, anything that you had?
No, it's pretty straightforward. Just for one clarification, does this include the development agreement, or has that been resolved, or?
That, well, Melanie will prepare the development agreement, and she has the,
Okay.
the information.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion
I'll make that motion.
to approve.
To approve, yes.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Resolution passes. Thanks for bringing that, thank you. Appreciate it. Number 2, EDA, Dodge County Housing Study Presentation. Okay, so this is the public notification of the, is it a hearing they're having? The presentation, so this is the public notice that on April 17th at 4:30, there's gonna be a presentation by Maxfield Research Consulting to provide insight on research findings and discuss recommendations. The meeting will be held at Conference Room B, Dodge County Government Services Building in Manorville on the 17th, which is next Wednesday at 4:30. So that's the public notice. There is the executive summary of that housing study is in your packet, which we have. So if you're interested in more information, I would attend the meeting. Any questions on that or comments at all? Just for information. And then, next we're gonna go to G, new business policy adoption, cemetery. Teresa?
Yes, this is, policy was updated just to address concerns regarding pets and the burial of cremains, just to be clear about how those would be handled.
Any questions for the administrator on that?
It's the move to F,
Oh,
the donation.
that was in the consent agenda.
Oh, well, I thought we had moved it down to business, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
So any questions for the administrator on the cemetery update, just clarifying pets and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie, do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dwayne, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Number 2, resolution for Safe Routes to School demonstration project.
So, the Kaplan Safe Safe Routes to School project was selected as a pilot for a demonstration program. So knowing that in 2022, we're gonna make a large infrastructure, commitment at that intersection, they'd like us to try it out with paint and those movable posts, what are those called?
Flex posts.
Flex posts, to just show how it will work and find out sooner than later what that answer is. So, MnDOT's offering $5,000 to go towards materials. Our street folks would provide the labor.
So we don't have, we're not gonna have to be on the hook for any of the materials, we'll just have our guys put the stuff up and
Right.
paint the lines then, okay?
Yes, and we're working hard to make sure our materials will be within that $5,000. How's that going?
Still working on Charlie.
Okay.
So he's working on it, so.
The cap is $5,000. Make it work. We're painting one intersection, right?
Two.
Two? Okay, so.
We're gonna do that mid-block crossing between the middle school and the
Oh,
elementary
sure,
school
yeah.
as well.
So, you can make that happen for $5,000. I have confidence.
Flex posts seem to be expensive, but that's the idea.
We'll have some kids stand out there and pretend they're.
The idea is not to have the kids stand.
Oh,
there.
okay.
We don't have the traffic,
Well,
but-
Okay.
So what is shaded in these illustrations is what would be painted?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Correct, and maybe, just a little bit more detail is we were looking at like a blue color to provide in those shaded areas, kind of match the school color, but that would be a nice touch, so. And these were projects that did come from our Safe Routes to School planning grants. And Teresa had mentioned that the 16th Street and Fifth Street intersection, or Fifth Avenue intersection, excuse me, were planned as part of that TAP grant in 2022. So, if this kind of works out, maybe it lasts that long, it'll be something that maybe we allocate funds differently. So we're heading in the right direction. Again, that's part of the planning grant that we had, so.
So this would be painted, but in the future, would this be concrete or?
Could be, that's one of the reasons why we kinda wanted to try it out. You know, we look at a lot of things, we look at these intersections, and it's obviously cheaper to put flex posts and some paint down as opposed to moving the curb and gutters.
Yeah.
So as part of the Safe Routes to School project in 2022, we were still looking at just painting these, but that may be something we could look at tweaking potentially if we really like it. Cause curb and gutter is more of a, obviously, permanent fix than paint that wears out and needs to be replaced, and flex posts that get hit by plows, et cetera, so.
So flex posts, that you just brought up a question on it, so are those permanent, they're out there all year?
Yeah, probably not.
You take them
Probably
down
come
for the winter?
there,
Yeah,
You don't hit 'em,
yeah,
okay.
Charlie says there's no way he
I
can
was
work
just-
around it.
Again, I don't understand all of that completely, but I
Yeah.
would, if I'm driving the plow, it's probably gone.
Oh, yeah, that's what,
Okay.
yeah, Charlie was very clear about that.
That's why you're not driving the plow.
Good thing it's flexible, cause they'd be
No,
in
no,
a
no.
pile in the spring somewhere, so. Okay. And when are they gonna,
Hopefully before the end of school.
so you can see it during school?
Yep.
And the intention is that this paint would last for a couple of years till we do the project?
Yep.
Okay.
Well-
Or even if we did 16th Street, we talked about chip sealing 16th Street, now this year we delayed it for 1 year. We could work that into additional striping and kind of work that into,
Okay.
so.
When I first saw it, I thought it was just a temporary thing, when they do it for a couple weeks with some temporary paint to see how it works, and then.
So that's the initial project kind of started out that way, and this is more of a permanent fix, they just give us cash to go build something, and then we're supposed to maintain it, if it works out well, that's the
Okay.
idea.
All right.
And I think this might be even the first one in the entire state, or at
Yeah,
least in
I think we're
area,
the
so this is like
pilot
a new program,
project.
so maybe a little southern air cap, since we're kind of proactive, and they kind of liked we had our campus laid out and our plans that we had done for the state, so.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Okay, I entertain a motion to approve, with a cap of $5,000 on materials.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Number 2, landscape partnership agreement is in your packet as well. That's the agreement, I'm sorry, Teresa, that's the agreement that we were in with MnDOT with
Yes.
the landscaping as you come into town along Gas and Car Care.
Yep.
And that's, again, funding provided by MnDOT for some plantings there, and the folks at Gas and Car Care have been contacted.
Yeah, I
with
talked
it.
to Tony.
It's not gonna impede on their business or their property or whatever, but it would be to kinda hide some of the stuff that's there, so I think it's a great thing that we got the MnDOT grants for or money for that, because people are coming to town, the first thing they see isn't, you know, it's their business, that's what they do, they have cars there.
Right, and it will not obscure their sign. MnDOT was very clear that the sign needs to be visible.
Right,
so.
yeah. think everybody's happy with that. Any other questions or comments anybody has? Okay, I'll make the motion to approve the grant.
I'll second.
Well, second, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Engineers report. First thing is the motion to approve the audit. We all have another hour to think about all the information in the audit, so anybody have questions or comments that came up for Nancy? Audits are fun, they're your friend. So, if there are none, it all looked good to me. I looked through, I picked up the audit report last week and read through it over the weekend, and it looked good to me, so.
I'm sure I probably asked this at the workshop, but the arena doesn't appear in the packet. Is that more county, or is that its own entity?
It's the relationship. We manage it, so it's a fiduciary fund, so it's treated different on an audit and
Okay.
accounting basis. So there are just one or two pages in there that you did see.
Yep, yep.
But we have all the detail if you need to, but, yeah, our responsibilities are less because of that relationship.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the audit as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. We have a
I'll
second?
second it.
Thanks, Bonnie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Secondly, just to add, we've got a invitation from the school for their annual business appreciation breakfast. So anybody in the council, staff is invited to go to that. It's Thursday, April 25th from 6:45 to 8 a.m. at the high school commons. They usually put on a little presentation and do some thank yous, and it's the school's way of reaching out and thanking the community for the support over the years. And Mark will superintendent will give an update on, they keep track of any of the donations the school gets from the community, the business community, and they'll give a total on how many dollars that was, and it's a pretty impressive number.
It's very nice.
So it's a way, I remember when I was on the school board, Mark started this, when he first got there, he said it's a way for the school to say thank you instead of always going to the business community with a handout or inviting them in for some eggs and fruit and saying thank you. So it's been a good time to go, and they'll have some kids do some stuff there too. So April 25th at 6:45 a.m.
6:45 to 8.
Yep. Administrator's report.
So the first thing I have is the sanitary sewer extension application. The city of Manorville is looking to add some new services onto the sanitary sewer that they feed to our wastewater treatment plant. These services, though, as I understand it, are on the other side of the pump or the meter that's telling us how much wastewater is coming, so they will have to meter those services separately and then add that to what.
For their percentage of
currently-
operating
yeah,
costs.
yeah, currently being metered.
Okay. Any questions for the administrator on that? Okay, entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Dwayne. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, Linda. Second one, administrative fee added to unpaid utilities.
So at a previous meeting, there was a resolution approved to certify unpaid utilities for collection with taxes. The landlords, property owners received notice of the intention to certify that for collection, and they were given the opportunity to pay that before it goes to the county audit. To that point, some of them were not clear about how had they known at the time that their tenant left, what the balance was. I couldn't answer that because some of those were 5 years old. Also, if they go ahead and pay it now, it won't actually be certified to the auditor in December. So I did let them know that I would come to you and ask, on their behalf, that if they pay by the end of the year, that we subtract the administrative fee from the amount that's currently due. If it goes to the auditor, the $50 stays, but if they pay it, we'll subtract $50 from the amount that was in the resolution.
Anybody? I have no problem with that. If we can just get the utilities paid up, that'd be great.
Yes.
No,
Yep,
but
I agree.
nothing to do with some of their, stuff.
Right. so if you'll make you made a motion to approve them in the first place, so if you'll make a motion to subtract the $50 if they pay, that would be great.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the I'll make a motion to approve with the $50 waived if they pay by the end of the year.
Thank you.
So moved.
Thanks, Dwayne. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Mel. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3, tax abatement project.
It's a resolution calling for a
Yeah.
public hearing at your next meeting. Mike Bubani will attend your next meeting.
So what this is there's a development with some issues, and they've come to the EDA, or the EDA's trying to work with David Rounds, they're doing some work to see if it's financially feasible and what the
Right.
nuts and bolts will be. So they'll be at the next meeting, on public hearing for people to be able to comment.
Right.
So, we're not approving a tax abatement tonight.
No.
We're just doing the public
Calling
hearing.
the public hearing, exactly.
So I'll entertain a
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Dodge County Complete Count Committee, or better known as census.
Yes.
We have to change the name of things, 'cause, anyway.
Yes, so the census representatives had been contacting individual cities about putting together complete count committees, and, Jim Elmquist, took it upon himself to initiate that at the county level. There could be one complete count committee in the county, in Dodge County, and each city could have a representative on that committee. That's more informational to let you know that's how it's being handled.
Okay.
Building permit fees, at the last meeting, I let you know that there was a major problem with my math. I got that straightened out, so,
Yep, I see the correction there.
New math, yeah.
The math makes sense now.
yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the correction.
Comment.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Dan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6.
On the small cell wireless, in order for cities to be able to have some control over design standards for small cell installations in the city, we do need to have either an ordinance or a policy in place. So, this is coming to you as a policy rather than an ordinance, essentially asking anyone who puts up a small cell, installation to match the pole, the design of the facility that they're attaching it to. So, it's really very basic, but it's just saying, hey, we have a lot of money in the streetlights, don't just hang something ugly there.
Part of the big orange box.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. Any questions for the administrator there? Makes sense. I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Do all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Teresa.
Mhm.
Engineers report, anything else, on your mind? Okay. Personnel, letter K. You got the memo in your department. Any questions for the police chief who's here? And just for clarification, this is, to replace somebody we already had. So it doesn't affect the budget. The budget's already there for the part-time officers for the year. This doesn't increase that. It's just, get the position filled. So no questions for the chief?
Nope.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Lonnie. Do I have a second?
So second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Correspondence, everything's in your packet. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the department heads or administrator. Any questions on any of the correspondence? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody. Appreciate it. Have fun with the snow.
If anybody wants to go to the SDMLM meeting on the 30th, just let me know. No.
That's Tuesday?
Yeah, I guess.
So.
No.